Among all the new and improved mechanics that were introduced in Elden Ring, Ashes of War, Stakes of Marika, Spirit Ashes, horse riding, jumping, there's one that has still stuck out to me to this day. You've seen the title and thumbnail, you know I'm referring to the Flask of Wondrous Physick mix. But why this one in particular, you may ask? Well, let's get into it. One thing I really value in games, especially the Soulsborne series, is when a mechanic has a risk-reward factor to it, and it's not just an objective upgrade with no drawbacks. One of the most commonly cited examples in the previous games are things like the Stones of Ephemeral Eyes, or Embers, where you get a boost in HP until death and allows cooperative summons, but puts you at risk of being invaded, or much worse in some cases. There's plenty of examples in the new mechanics of Elden Ring as well, but this is the one big reason why I really appreciate the Wondrous Physick above all the other ones. Depending on the crystal tiers themselves, you got one chug and anywhere from 10 seconds to 3 minutes to get whatever you need to get done. And you don't need to farm anything either. Even this game has issues where getting consistent resources for some items is annoying to farm or procure in some way. Aeonian butterflies and toxic mushrooms for rot pots is one thing that comes to mind. Another one is a good chunk of the materials for perfume bottles. Let's say the spark aromatic. In a lot of ways, the Wondrous Physick is a modular perfume bottle that doesn't require any farming, given that there's some buffs like the Opaline bubble tier that has a similar effect to the uplifting aromatic. To top it off, it allows for a vast amount of creativity in gameplay styles. If they had simply decided to allow one buff at a time in the Physick, it would have already been a good addition, but them allowing you to mix any 2 crystal tiers opened up the possibilities for whole new combat interactions that are scarcely seen to this degree in the rest of the series. Let's talk about some of the combinations people have rocked. One of my favorite ones has to be the combination of the Leaden Heart tier, the one that gives you nearly infinite poise, along with the Crimson World bubble tier, the one that allows you to absorb non-physical damage and turn it into HP for yourself, both for 10 seconds. If you know when and where to place this chug, you could potentially not only survive very deadly situations, but get in a ton of DPS and health back to boot. This one is very popular and useful for invaders to use, as it's a very good way to dispatch anywhere from one opponent to the entirety of the group of players, or at the very least get them off your back for a few seconds. When 3 people are on your ass at all times, getting in very fast DPS without being able to be staggered can be key in turning in the tide of an invasion, but it's not foolproof. Bleed can still stagger you out of it, and if the group are all running entirely physical damage, especially with big weapons, it's very likely you'll still die, so it takes awareness from the user as well. Another useful combination if you'd rather have more padding against physical damage is the same poise tier, but using the normal Crimson Bubble tier, that gives you some HP back if you get close to death. But it's certainly more circumstantial and more precise, as you will still die from a big enough hit, though this one lasts 3 minutes instead of the 10 seconds, unless I've procced before that. Another popular one is the Cerulean Hidden tier, with any number of other combinations. This one is particularly useful for those spells and Ashes of War that continuously drain FP, being able to spam it in any situation for 10 seconds, such as the Meteorite of Astel, Unendurable Frenzy, and Comet Azure. Combining this with something like the Poise or Elemental Health regen can ensure that you're an unstoppable machine for those 10 seconds that this is activated. YouTuber Adam Barker famously made a quite creative mech build using Unendurable Frenzy, acting as a lawnmower for anything in front of it. But this still isn't broken by any means. It's simply players that jumped carelessly in front of it that get shredded. And of course, we can't not mention the one spell that everyone likes to combine this with. As ridiculously overpowered as this can be in some situations, I really appreciate that FromSoft still allows us to play with these toys. It's still somewhat balanced, it only lasts 10 plus seconds, and not all bosses fall for this. And you essentially only get one try at it per attempt. And at least the Comet Azure one won't be that useful in PvP. I don't know if this combination is popular or unique, but you can't deny it's very funny. How to counter it? Don't fucking spawn camp in it. Now let's look at some standalone tiers that are also very handy when used in the right situations. Not crystal tiers help a ton with getting just enough stats for maybe a more stat intensive spell that you don't necessarily need all the time. This helps a lot with the Radagon statue puzzle as well, in case you don't want to dump into intelligence or respec just for it. Especially works well with the heirloom talisman and any other stat raising equipment. The Opaline Heart tier is really nice if you're maybe a lighter or no armor character and you still want some defense on you for a boss fight. Of course, it can be combined with the Opaline Bubble tier for the one extra padded hit as well. Speckled Heart Tier is awesome for both increasing resistances and curing. A lot of items will only do one. For instance, the cured meats will add resistances, but it will still have that part of the added resistance as build-up status, so you have to wait for that to pass, which is precious item buff time being wasted. But combining that and the Horn Charms with Speckled is a good way to get a ton of resistances for a decent amount of time. Of course, the Shrouding Crack tiers are awesome for any builds that have one specific elemental damage, especially if combined with the Knots or even the Scorpion Charms. Spells that do 100% magic damage will just have a full 20% added to damage on top of it. The last one I want to talk about does start heading into the imbalanced territory, but it definitely threads that line, as it's still only a 3-minute buff. That could run out at an inconvenient spot. The Winged Crystal tier. Having a tier that gives you 450% maximum load increase is quite a lot, more than most reasonable builds will ever need, potentially making any build that could be completely over encumbered, mid-roll, or potentially even fast roll. I think ideally this should allow only one jump in roll speed, maybe two if you did invest a lot into endurance. I did mention running out at an inopportune time, and that's certainly very possible if you don't manage to defeat a boss or a PvP encounter within those 3 minutes, putting you back at heavy rolling if that's where your equipment load was at. But at the end of the day, it does essentially negate the drawbacks of having a tanky character, being slower movement, which I do wish was more viable in general in Elden Ring, being slow and tanky. All in all, the best thing about the Wondrous Physick is that it's not only incredibly resourceful, but it's very fun to mess around with when you get creative with it. The amount of hilarious situations you can have as a result of it is very nice. Humor is a very underappreciated aspect of this series. It's certainly quite likely that we'll get another set of crystal tiers added in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, so do tell me in the comments, what kind of effects would you like to see added? Be it a 10-second effect or all the way to 3 minutes. Personally, I would like to see a few more 10-second buffs that can be placed very cleverly. Perhaps something that makes you and your attacks completely intangible for as little as 5 seconds or so could be interesting to play with, and certainly would be fun for role-playing reasons as well. Alternatively, you can tell me your favorite crystal tier combination that we already have available, and some interesting situations you have found yourself using it in. And that is all for the video. This video idea just came to me one time when I was really appreciative of the Wondrous Physick and realized, hey, I can make a video on that, because I don't think I've really seen something like this specifically talked about. At least not if I search Wondrous Physick or something on the search bar. So I figure why not. I've gone to use it a lot in both PvE and PvP encounters, so I have both sides of the coin to appreciate it from, because they both have their own uses for sure. And I certainly didn't talk about a lot of them. A lot of them are just kind of basic, stamina buffs, healing, buffs to charge attacks, mana recovery, that kind of thing. A lot of things that can already be acquired elsewhere through an item and such, so that's why I didn't really discuss a lot of them. I mostly wanted to focus on the ones that are very specific and unique, that are often just a good way to top off your build, whether it be finishing off any stat requirements or just an enhancement to it because it's already complete. It definitely hasn't quite reached its full potential. There could be more combinations that could be nice to have, but again, DLC could add something that could blow our minds even more so than some of these already have, so we shall see if we get any nice ones. But yeah, I've been liking doing some of these micro topic videos. If you have been as well, please like the video and share it around and stuff. Let me know if you do in the comments, because I still got a handful of little ideas here and there that I could discuss. If you missed it, I previously talked about the size of Elden Ring as a map, as an open world and such. That was kind of the first video in this kind of style. And next one likely will be another one. I have at least one more idea that I do want to discuss for now, because I'm still working on 1.0. And hopefully that comes out in 2 weeks or so. We'll see. But yeah, thanks to my members as always for supporting the channel. If you did like this video and would like to see more like it, do consider subscribing. Also, we're 100 or so subs away from 5,000. As of right now, the plans are to do a Taunter's Tongue run on PS5, which will allow viewer interaction as well. So if that's something you would like to see or take part in, consider subscribing as well. And yeah, I hope to see you again. Bye bye.